All right, Shalom. I want to start by giving our praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who teach and rule well, and also to their elders, the men that taught them. I pray the Lord have peace, blessings, and mercy upon the households, the hopeful elect. This is the brother Shema One from the Great Millstone Houston Church, and I want to come with a lesson, as the title says. Let's see, which is a quote from Luke chapter 21 in verse 25, as it reads in the title, and upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity. And just typing that quote in Chat GPT, it and I asked it, is this happening in today's time? And it was accurate on its feedback. And also this article about, this heat dome that's taking place across the United States, and also this what do they call it, the heat mania, which is going across Europe, you know causing distress among, the people out there in that area, which is, according to biblical prophecy, things like this would be taking place before Yahweh Shah makes his return, where it tells you these are signs that the Lord is visiting the world which he made, as it reads in Second Ezra, the 9th chapter. But I'll start with the chat first, then we'll hop in the article. Let me do this. Let's go to Luke chapter 21 real quick. One second. Luke chapter 21 in verse 25. It reads, and the heading is the return of Yahweh Shai. It says, and there shall be signs in the, Salak. Yeah, okay. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. And going into Yahweh Shai's return, different, what's the word? I guess you could say like phenomenons, or it says signs. Let's see. The word in the Greek is G4592, Simeon. And on the outline of biblical usage, well, above it, it says miracle, sign, token, wonder. It says especially ceremonially or supernaturally. An indication, and it says sign, mark, token, that by which a person or a thing is distinguished from others and is known. And uh, just going to how these signs are going to be taking place, which indicate Yahweh Shah's return. This is a part of that timeline. All right. So all of these things would be taking place, signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, which have been going on. Matter of fact, let me do this. Let's go to Google real quick. Oh, let me type it in and I'll share my screen. One second. Let me do this. All right, let's do this. I just highlighted that part of the verse and said, and I said, what are some recent events that are fitting? And right here, just just from a quick Google lookup, let's read it. Let me share my screen. So as you can see, it says uh the passage you quoted is from Luke 21 and 25, where the true name of the Savior of Israel is not Jesus, it is Yahweh Shai, which means he delivers, he saves. It says where Yahweh Shai describes the cosmic and earthly turmoil preceding his return. For many who monitor biblical prophecy, the dramatic, celestial, and environmental events of the mid 2020s clearly mirror these descriptions. So showing you what time we're in. Hey, we're in the time of the Lord making his return and visiting this earth, man. So it says the following recent cosmic and global occurrences align with the imagery of signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. Let's just keep reading a little bit. It says signs in the sun. It says solar cycle 25 peak, 2024 through 2026. It says the sun reached its official solar maximum phase, displaying an unprecedented level of uh, volatility. Let's see. Uh, I don't know how to look that up. Hold up. There we go. I'll just read it, then I'll go back to it. It says volatility. Let's hear it. Volatility. There you go. It says liability to change rapidly and unpredictably, especially for the worse. It says tendency of a substance to evaporate at normal temperature. But just looking up that word real quick, going back, it says um, the sun bombarded the solar system with over 50 X class solar flares, the highest energy category, causing massive explosions of plasma. And they got some sources right here. The next, it says the Gannon superstorm, May 2024. Earth was struck by its strongest geomagnetic storm recorded this century, related to a maximum 5G or G5 level. It wrapped Earth's magnetic field and triggered one of the largest satellite migrations in human history to prevent them from falling out of orbit. Yada, yada, yada. Let's see what else. Signs in the moon. It says the strawberry supermoon. Well, hold up. Let's see. Let's read the last one. The Great North American Eclipse, April 2024. A rare total solar eclipse crossed the continent. I remember that. It left the crossing of the ta in the Hebrew, the last character of the Hebrew, which is a X, and it represents the end. It says a rare total solar eclipse crossed the continent, plunging tens of millions of people into midday darkness and exposing massive looping plasma um, looping plasma filaments on the sun on the sun's surface. Now, signs in the moon. It says the strawberry supermoon and blood moons. It says observers of biblical prophecy frequently point to consecutive years of bright supermoons and blood moons, total lunar eclipses, which visibly mimic the prophesied darkening of the moon. Increased gravity and tides. It says the consecutive visual shifts in the moon's closeness approaches have coincided with extreme high tides, feeding into the literal next line of Luke 21 and 25. It says the sea and the waves roaring, which also symbolize people, all right, being affected by what the Lord said prior, perplexity and what did it say? The distress of nations. The sea represents people also, but also, it could be twofold where these things are going to actually, be affected, a part of the signs. But it says signs in the stars. It says widespread aurora displays 2024 through 2026. It says because of hyperactive sun, the northern and southern lights have expanded widely, illuminating the night skies at latitudes far lower than normal. Millions of people in regions that never see auras have witnessed the stars and upper atmosphere glowing in vivid hues of red and green. And that's pretty much it. Just wanted to see what Google said, which the evidence is there, and even physically seeing certain things take place, seeing these things play out in real time. Let me go back 1 second. Back in Luke chapter 21, in verse, let me read 25. It says, "And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars," which is, we just got some accounts on Google from a lookup. It says, "And upon the earth the distress of nations with perplexity." It says the sea and the waves roaring. Let's look up this word distress. It's anxiety, anguish, distress, a holding together, a narrowing. It says uh, a contracting part of a way, straits, distress, anguish. So that's coming upon the nations with perplexity. It says the state of one who is in perplexity, but I want to look up this word, how it says quandary. It says the state of perplexity or uncertainty over what to do in a difficult situation. So people are going to be out here clueless. All right. Whenever these things, that's what it said for quandary. I don't know. It didn't show on the screen, but people are going to be out here, without solutions to the problems. They will be in a state of not knowing what to do. And the most important thing to do in those times is being able to call upon the name of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai in faith, you know, and just trusting in the Lord during these times where it will be a difference because the scriptures tell you wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of that times, having faith during moments of distress in whenever the world is going to be in perplexity, you know, and it says the sea and the waves roaring is going to have an effect, on the people. Because in Revelation, the 17th chapter, when you read it, it goes into people being, or the waters, the seas being compared unto people, but also, you know, twofold. But let me go to Chat GPT real quick and just read some of what it stated. And I'm gonna read off my phone. It says, so I said, or copied and pasted, and upon the earth the stress of nations with perplexity. I said, is this happening in today's time? It says the verse you're referring to is from Luke 21 and 25, and it quotes the scripture. And it says, many people believe the conditions described in this passage resemble events happening today. Whether one views this as a direct fulfillment of prophecy depends on their interpretation. And this has nothing to do with how one person views it. These things are written in the scriptures, and these things that we just read are literally happening on this earth. So it's not how one, interprets it. Is if you're able to really see what's going on, because a lot of people are blind. A lot of people really don't have the understanding of, yet they can see what's taking place on the earth, but can't compare it to biblical prophecy, and especially end time prophecy at that. Okay, going back to the heading, the return of Yahweh Shai, that's on its way. Yahweh Shai is making his return, but before he physically returns, these signs would be taking place on the earth. All right. But it says, but there are certainly developments that fit the language of this passage. So now the first part, it says distress of nations. It says this speaks of nations being under severe pressure, turmoil, and anguish. And it says today we see, and it gives a few bullet points. It says ongoing wars and conflicts in multiple regions. The second one, economic instability, inflation, and growing national debt. The third bullet, mass migration and refugee crisis. The next one, political division and civil unrest in many countries. And the last bullet point, it says food insecurity and supply chain disruptions. And these things are active today, and only, pointing to these things growing and worsening, where it shows you whatever people want to argue about in debate, you can't upset biblical prophecy because, due to the distress of nations, the things that it just listed as bullet points are accurate. All right. Where the people are moved by it, this is felt. Now it says with perplexity, it says the Greek word translated uh, perplexity carries the idea of being at a loss, having no way out, being without a solution. Now it says many governments today face problems that seem to have no clear answer. Now let me read the bullet points for with perplexity. It says climate related disasters, and that's really what made me bring up the article that I had pulled up, going into, just what's going on in the climate. It says, next one, rising crime and social instability. Next, cyber warfare and AI related concerns, energy shortages in some financial systems burdened by debt. And last, it says declining trust in institutions. And accurately saying these things, these are going on today. And it says, despite technological advances, many leaders openly acknowledge that many of the crises are interconnected and difficult to solve. In the last part of the verse, it says, the sea and the waves roaring. This can be understood literally and symbolically. Literally, hurricanes, tsunamis, storm surges, flooding, and severe weather affecting regions. It says symbolically, in biblical prophecy, the sea often represents peoples and nations. Hey, that's how you know we've been training Chat GPT, because it's on point and fitting to, the doctrine that we teach. It breaks it down accurately. I'm gonna say most of the time, but lately it has been tripping. Like you could tell, it's being re-geared and stuff. But for the most part, right now, it is accurate. So it says, see Revelation 17 and 15. In that sense, the sea and the waves roaring can picture mass protests, riots, revolutions, civil unrests, nations in upheaval. Hold on 1 second. That means disruption. So yeah, then it says, last but not least, I'll jump down and it says, from the perspective you've shared in previous conversations. See, it says from the perspective you've shared in previous conversations, this passage aligns with a broader collection of end time prophecies, including Matthew 24, Mark 13, 2nd Ezra 9, and Revelation 6, which describe increasing turmoil, uh, preceding the establishment, preceding the establishment of the kingdom of the Most High. And these things have to take place before the kingdom is established, which is a part of the Lord visiting this place, because this ain't for no reason. It's called judgment, and things are gonna get worse before they get better. And it's not just 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 one sided. It's not just gonna be just evil and bad times. There's going to be a balance where the Lord is going to have mercy upon his remnant, those that have faith in him, those who, those who are sincerely, in a repentative spirit and trying to, serve the Lord to the best, of our ability, you know, while understanding we're not perfect, and due to Yahweh's sacrifice, and if we believe in it and are able to follow him and have faith in him, there's a way out. And that's where our faith lies. Wherein people are going to be out here with no solution because they don't know Yahweh Shai. Where you will be left in the a state of being, perplexed or in perplexity, you know, stuck in a state of distress. All right, which is going to be a matter of fact. Let me get a precept. Um, this is second Esdras. No, not second Esdras. Sirach, Ecclesiasticus. Where is that? Chapter 22 and verse 16. Let me share it. Sirach, chapter 22 and verse 16. The benefit of, you know, following Yahweh Shah, trying to be obedient. It says, verse 16, a wooden beam, and this is in the GNT, it says a wooden beam can be put into a building so firmly that an earthquake cannot shake it loose. It says a person can be trained to use reason and good sense so well that he keeps his head when a crisis comes. So during the times of distress, and whenever this world is going to be perplexed due to us, serving the Lord, not taking advantage of this opportunity where the prophets are out, the examples are out, the scriptures are being broke down where we understand the will of the Lord now and what the Lord requires, from the hopeful elect. If we follow in those things, that's like the guideline to success. That's the what is the blueprint to victory. And this is all according to the will of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah. This is his gift that he gave unto certain individuals on this earth that take heed. They just like you know, well, I ain't gonna just hop around like that. I'm gonna stick to this. But let me read it again. A wooden beam can be put into a building so firmly that an earthquake cannot shake it loose. And imagine being deeply rooted where you can't be moved. Look at the earthquake that just hit Venezuela. Shit came down, collapsing. It looked like a war zone out there. But in comparison to, you being rooted firmly where you can't be shooken or loose, compared to a person can be trained to use reason and good sense. And that comes by making no tarrying to turn to the Lord while he may be found, listening to the true prophets, in applying, what it is that we're learning in especially what we teach, which is through experience where the Lord is going to put you through situations and allow a way out of them, you know, and that's a even me and Yak and I were talking about that today at the J, how the Lord is allowing us to trust in Him even more by putting us through certain situations that are uncomfortable. But looking back at the past, from what we came out of, that's like a stepping stone in, something to build on where like it's like, man, the Lord is real and able to deliver you from whatever it is that you know, whatever it is that you go through, so thinking about times like a crisis, or times of just distress, having a good reason and good sense and applying it, it says so well that he keeps his head when a crisis comes. So you won't be in perplexity. You will know what to do. And what do we do? Hey, call halal Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah. Go to the source, all right, who is able to save. We go to our powers, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah. Because what did the scripture say real quick? Um, let me do this. Pull up another tab. Psalms 34 and verse 19, it says, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of all of them. Psalms 34 and 7, going up, it says, the angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him and delivereth them. Yeah. So there's a difference. All right. There's a difference. And there's a way out and to overcome, you know. Let's see. What do I want? Let me read this. Let me go back to the GNT. No, second Esdras. Second Esdras 13 in verse 23. It says, the one who brings the dangers in those days will also protect from danger the people who have stored up good works in faithfulness with God Almighty, with God the Almighty One. Again, this is second Esdras chapter 13 and verse 23 in the GNT. It says, the one who brings the dangers in those days, speaking about in the last days, surviving until the end. Okay. Let me start at verse 22. It says, you have raised questions about those who will survive until the end. The answer is this: the one who brings the dangers in those days will also protect from danger, okay, the people who have stored up good works. And just thinking about how it said in Sirach 22, those that have basically have good how did it say real quick? Hold on. Sirach 22 and 16, real quick. It says, Sirach 22 and 16 in the GNT, right here, it says, come on, highlight. It says a person can be trained to use reason and good sense so well that he keeps his head when a crisis comes. Yeah, that's what it said. So being able to apply that, which is a part of what we are working for now, what we're able to do now, that's where it will lead. Because this ain't in vain, serving the Lord, that's not in vain. Where a lot of people think it's a waste of time, and especially your family think you just he just a part of something so temporary, but hey, Lord willing, they'll see shortly. That hey, they've been lied to, and we've been following the truth this whole time. But let me go back. Uh, man, what was I just in? Second Ezra 13, not in the GNT though. No, yeah, I was. Second Ezra 13 and 23. It says, the one who, in the GNT, the one who brings the dangers in those days will also protect from danger the people who have stored up good works and faithfulness with God, the Almighty One. So, yeah, that was it. The Lord is the one bringing it, and the Lord is the one who is going to protect and preserve in those days, in the end times. Let me see. Let me go to that article now, real quick. 31 minutes. Just I'll hop around through this article. It says this is from today, June 29th, 2026. It says media coverage of summer heat dome returns amid debate over terminology and timing. So going into it, it says summer 2026 heat dome forecast prompt media attention. The National Weather Service issued heat dome warnings for multiple states in June 2026, with temperatures expected to exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit in parts of the Midwest and South, according to agency statements. Major U.S. media outlets, including the New York Times, CNN, and the Washington Post, began publishing articles on June 25th and 26th, highlighting the heat dome and potential health risks, as reported by the website What's Up With That in a June 27th commentary. Let's see what I could get out of there. I'll read the next one. It says, according to meteorologists at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is the NOAA, which you'll see later throughout this, if I read that far into it, it says the heat dome is caused by a strong pressure system trapping hot air, a pattern observed in previous summers. The Associated Press, it says the Associated Press in its June 26 coverage includes quotes from forecasters emphasizing the need for public precautions, though some outlets noted that recurring nature of such events, noted the recurring nature of such events, and just understanding, or just let's, think about why these things are taking place. Is it for no reason? Is it just how to say climate change? Well, what's the cause of these things? You don't think it might have something to do with all these damn data centers being put up? Esau destroying the earth, and this is a reaction that you get. And it could be, the Lord allowing Esau to do this with his technology, but at the same time, this is the Lord's doing, where the Lord controls what goes on, among the kingdom of men. All right. And this is all a part of those distress moments, which is going to keep leading to people being perplexed, not knowing what the hell to do and having no outcome, no solution to the problem. All right. And especially, these people don't attach these events taking place on the earth to biblical prophecy, where people get offended or their God wouldn't do this, that type of mindset. But it says Okay, I'll read the next one too. It says, um, critics question media framing in historical context. It says the website What's Up With That published a June 27th commentary arguing that the media's use of the term heat dome is a recurring seasonal trope that exaggerates the significance of typical summer weather. And that's bullshit, you know? Like this is something common. No, it's not. Like something that just reoccurs and seasonally. No, it's not. That's why it's getting this much attention. Then it says, let me jump down. It says heat domes are not new. And that jumping down, let me see right here. It says heat domes are not new, and that the media's alarmist framing ignores long-term climate variability and the fact that similar heat events occurred decades ago. But guess what? Esau has a lot to do with uh, the heat dome, or the changes in the climate, where they try to put it on. Did I get to that point yet? I don't think I did. But basically, they were somewhere in here. It was going into how it's just a part of nature. This is how nature changes. But it's like Esau is the cause of a lot of uh what does it say? A lot of evil in this earth. A lot of the bad times that take place is due to Esau being used to destroy the earth. What would the devil do? And he would do shit like this. But understanding too is judgment. You know, ultimately it's Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai judging this place. Allowing the prophecies to speak where people are in distress and perplexed. But it says, um, let me see, man. And I'll post this if you want to read it more. Let's see. Let's jump in here. It says legal governments. It says local, Salakia, local governments in affected states activated cooling centers and issued heat advisories. The city of Chicago, for example, opened 24-hour shelters in June on June the 28th. It says according to city press releases. Let's see. The heat dome media distracts from summer weather risks. Next, uh, okay, I'll read this one. It says energy. It says energy experts noted that increased air conditioning demand during heat domes strained power grids. It says the North American Electric Reliability Corporation warned on June 27th that rolling blackouts are possible in some regions if demand peaks. Now, just imagine niggas being in the dark, not having, no type of air conditioning at all. Man, hey, people are gonna get more uncomfortable. People are gonna, start getting impatient and affected. And you could just see these things taking place where it's gonna just cause just more unease, you know, upon the people. It's gonna get very uncomfortable, not only through, financial hardships, the food, but also like the weather, you know. Hey, that's judgment from Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, thinking how it was in Egypt, ancient Egypt. The Lord was doing, phenomenons in the way he was judging Egypt, where how they say a natural disaster. No, that's a heavenly judgment, divine judgment. It says, let's see. Okay, I'll keep reading. So it says, critics of the media response, it says, such as the group behind the declaration signed by 1,609 scientists stating there is no climate emergency. It says, contend that alarmist framing can lead to costly, hold on, is this? Yeah, okay. It says costly policy overreactions. It says the UK government's use of a behavioral insight team to nudge public acceptance, Salakia, to nudge public acceptance of heat bumps as reported by naturalnews.com illustrates the growing insurrection of climate messaging of behavioral manipulation, according to the article. Let's keep reading. Um, that's it. That's pretty much it. I thought it was something else. That might have been from another one, but for the most part, that's what's going on, and people are getting affected by it, and it ain't. You know, let's see. Hold on. Let's emphasize heat events, and that's pretty much it for that. And I'll read one last thing. What's going on? Worldwide, or the extreme heat in Europe right now. Just looking some information up on what's going on in Europe. It says, and I'm gonna read it from my phone. It says Europe is experiencing one of its most severe early summer heat waves on record, and it is causing significant loss of life, widespread disaster, widespread distress, infrastructure problems, and increased wildfire damage. It says the extreme heat is not limited to Europe either. Other parts of the world are also experiencing dangerous temperatures. And this is a part of the Lord's judgment. Let's get a precept. The Lord is just, revealing that this place is going down. It's circling the drain, but it's getting, further down the drain, about to make its exit. Let's see, real quick. Let's get Second Ezra, the ninth chapter. 1 second. All right, that's it on that. Second Ezra chapter 9. Oh, really hold up. They have more in that Luke. Let's do that. Luke chapter 21. And let's pick back up. Luke chapter 21 and verse 25. It says, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity. It says, the sea and the waves roaring. Verse 26. Men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. So, imagine the times increasing and getting more, um, how should I say, more perilous. The increase of just discomforts and what this world ain't preparing for. Wherein what we're entertaining spiritually will affect us physically, where we will be sheltered, from, being a part of the, being condemned with this world by these judgments that will overtake them. Let me do this. Hold up real quick. Psalms 91. Let's go here. Psalms 91, and I'll read it in the NLT. Psalms 91 and 1, it says, "Those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of the Almighty." And having the having faith in the correct doctrine, having faith in the testimony of Yahweh Shah, having the truth of these scriptures, the understanding of these scriptures, that allows us to be protected by Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, being under his protection, having that shade from the Lord, wherein, like it says, hold up, let me see real quick. Let me see if I can find it. It's all good. I'll keep reading. So it says, those in the NLT, Psalms 91 and 1, those who live in the shelter of the Most High, and thinking about it too, the name of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah tells you, the name of the Lord is a strong tower, and the righteous runneth into it, and are safe. That's a part of that protection too, coming under the right name. All right, coming under the one who is able to protect and be a shelter. All right, that's important to know. You can't just call on any name, because it's many gods out here. People got, there's many different gods out here, but there's only one Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shah. There's only one Yahweh Shah Hamashiach. All right. It says, verse 2, this I declare about the Lord. He alone is my refuge, my place of safety. He is my God, and I trust him. It says, for he will rescue you from every trap and protect you from deadly disease. We keep on reading, but that was the point. So let's go back to Luke. That's what it was. Luke 21. In verse, let's see, 26 again, it says, men's heart failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Yeah, those in authority, the leaders, all right, they're going to be stricken with fear. All right, the mighty ones, the high and noble and mighty ones right now, they about to be, or it's not finna go well with them. They are finna be, moved with fear. Let me find a precept real quick. Hold on. This is Second Ezra chapter 16 and verse 18. It says, I'll start at 17. It says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? And that's the thing. I'm man, talking to Elder Yakadal today, he made a point where, because I told him a dream, and actually remember more of the dream now. It was spiritual. It was even, more uplifting than just seeming to be in an ill situation. Where pretty much in the dream, real quick, he kept saying, it's damn, what did he say? Oh, it's all, he kept saying it's all digital. It's all digital now, which reflecting on the dream now, it was during the time of the mark of the beast being, mandatorily implemented, where in the dream we were together for a moment and on the run, on the move, and it was like restless and very like dangerous times where you had to be circumspect, and being led by the spirit was the only way to get through. Where we were hiding in like an abandoned car, and we made it to this house, and pretty much everywhere it was closed off. There's blockades everywhere. You know, heavily a heavy military presence in the streets, going door to door, like going through shit that you wouldn't even expect to be checked. It was like that, where it's like there's no way out. So we ended up finding, a house to go into, and as soon as the elder went in the house wherein I remained in the car, they had, you know, it was specifically in the dream. It was a big ass Edomite, but he had on like a judge apparel, like the judges today, that black gown, and he ran into the house. And mind you, military is heavy, busting door to door. But he ran in the house and he came back out. Then I went in the house and I saw the elder still there, and there were other people in there, and it made me think like, hey, the Lord lifted up a standard where he probably, the enemy or those that were after, us didn't even see us, didn't even notice that they were in the house, you know. But I forgot why I even started talking about that. Anyway, going back to Second Ezra 16, how it says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? We just read a few precepts of, the Lord is the one who will deliver. That's who. But it's gonna be a time like it would seem damn near impossible to be delivered, but we can't lose that faith that the Lord is going to deliver us, even if it losing our temporary life on this side, to gain our everlasting life. All right. And just really trying to tap into that mindset, because we all, if we're serving the Lord, that's a possibility, you know, where we got to understand the Lord won't put nothing too much on us where we can't bear. Hey, no matter how old you are, or no matter how young you are, if you are in the hands of the Lord, nobody can pluck you out of his hands, you know. In this days that we're in, according to what's written, none have been confounded that ever put their trust in the Lord. All right. Whether it be through life or death. In verse 18, though, it says, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear. The beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? And that's what's coming. But going to the point how it said, the powers of heaven shall be shaken, it made me think of what I just read, how it said, and the power shall stand in fear. These niggas are going to be shook out their mind. Don't ever think that they go have like the upper hand. The Lord is gonna put fear in these niggas. They already are, and it's just gonna increase. The more they see the presence of the Lord and feel the presence of the Lord, which is gonna be undeniable, the more fear is gonna strike them, because they understand whose kingdom is next to be established, and they understand, or they know who's coming. I'm gonna put it like that. Especially these elites, they know the powers of this kingdom. They know. In verse 27, back in Luke 21 and 27, it says, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Yahweh Shah's returning. Uh, how does it say? Aerially, if that's even a word, from the heavens, by way of a chariot, a so-called UFO or UAP. a part of the heavenly in a heavenly vehicle, all right, with the armies, with the military, the heavenly host, with power and great glory. And it says, when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. And that's what's coming very soon. But Lord willing, I went it there. I pray this lesson was edifying to the Lord's elect. I went way longer than expected. But hey, again, I want to give our praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Hakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who teach and rule well. And Lord willing, to the next time, I say shalom.